Hi everyone, it's Jason here again. Today we're going to be reviewing the invoice creation process. Before we get into it, I should mention something about this invoicing process. It can be used to create invoices for your customers for work that's already been completed. In this sense, it's a typical invoicing process. In addition, however, it can be used to create work orders and appointments for those work orders. As you'll see once you start to use the platform, there's really no difference between the invoicing process and the process by which we create work orders. Both processes use this invoice creation process that we're going to be looking at in this video. So with that, let's jump in. Now, if we were wanting to create an invoice for one of our customers, we've really got two options. From the dashboard, we can click Create Invoice at the top right here. Alternatively, we can go to the menu and select Customers. We'll go to Invoicing and select Create Invoice. So since we're on the dashboard, let's click Create Invoice at the top here. So from here, we need to select the customer that we'd like to create the invoice for. We can search by name, phone number, email, address. I'll search for their first name. Here he is here. So after locating the customer, we'll click Start, just on the right here. When it comes to creating an invoice, we've got three options. If we've previously invoiced this customer for a similar service, what we can do is make a copy of that invoice and simply add or remove services to it. This makes it very quick to invoice customers that we've done business with in the past. If we just want to create a new invoice from scratch, we'll click New Invoice here. And lastly, if we had started to create an invoice but didn't finish it, we can click on the Edit Draft button. That'll give us a list of drafts that we can then continue editing. In this tutorial, we're just going to be creating a new invoice, so I'll click this button in the center. All right, so in this example, what we're going to be doing is creating a work order, or what we'll call a future dated invoice for some work that the client has asked us to do. The cost of this job may ultimately change after it's been completed. Let's say we get on site and the client asks us to do a bit of extra work. Not a problem. We can always come back to this work order and update it. So at the top of this page, we've got the property that this work order or future dated invoice pertains to. We've got a couple here. I'll select this property. Next, we can actually indicate the work that's going to be completed as well as the cost. So in this case, we'll say that the client has asked us to do a deep clean of 2 bedrooms, which we said will be $150. We'll add a second line. And we'll say that the client has also asked us to do deep clean of 2 bathrooms, and we'll say that's $120. Next, we'll indicate the frequency of this job. It's just one time. And if the customer has a coupon code that they'd like to apply to this order, or if we'd like to provide a discount to the customer, we can select from the available coupon codes that we have set up. I won't apply a coupon code to this particular order. So next we can indicate any special instructions that we've received from the customer. So in this case, maybe they've told us that the keys will be in the mailbox. Next, we can add our other costs to this work order. And I should mention that anything entered into this section is not subject to any taxes or discounts. So just as an example, let's say that the client has asked us to maybe purchase a special cleaner specifically for them, and for whatever reason the tax code says that this cleaner is tax exempt. Not the best example, but it's the one we'll use. So we're using cleaner X for the client, and that's going to be an additional $30. No taxes will be applied to that. And Lastly, we've got the employee tip. If the customer pays via cash or check after they pay, essentially we want to come back to this invoice and document the tip before we mark it as being paid. It's important that we document the tip here because our platform automatically records and splits tips by employee. We'll skip past this field for now as we're not quite sure, obviously, what the client is going to tip at this point. All right, so now we're on the select appointment date time page. So since we've built out the future dated invoice or the work order, we can now set the appointment associated with the work order. This page is entirely optional. If the work's already been done and we're just needing to create an invoice for the customer, we can skip right past this page. For the purposes of this demo, what we'll say is that the work hasn't yet been completed and we need to set an appointment in our calendar for it. All right, so you'll see at the top here that our system has determined that this job is going to take 2.75 hours. If we think that's accurate, we can leave it as is. In this case, I'm going to say that this job is actually going to take 3.5 hours. Next, we know that the customer would like this work to take place 1 week from now, so we'll check to see if we have availability on that day. So we'll click select booking date. Actually, I'll just scroll down. And we'll select the 21st of March and we'll see what times we have available. So we've got start times from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. We'll select 1 p.m. Next, we have an opportunity to document an arrival window. So based on our history, I know that we might arrive 30 minutes early for the appointment or 30 minutes late. And since that's a total window of 1 hour, what I'm going to do is put 1 in here to represent that 1 hour window. All right, so if we know that one of our teams is especially good at this type of service, what we can do is select that team from this drop down. And what this does is it gives preference to this team when the auto scheduler runs over this job. If we don't have a preference, we don't have to select a team. Lastly, we can indicate whether or not we want this job to actually be auto-scheduled to our staff. We do, so in this case, I'll leave this enabled. And we'll click Save. Right, so this is the last screen of this process. We're shown a summary of the work order or the future dated invoice, as we'll call it. In addition, we've got some payment options on the right. Now, because this customer has already done business with us in the past, we have the option of simply charging their credit card on file by clicking this button. And we could do that if we were given approval to do that. We also have the ability to enter a new credit card number into this form. If the client provides that to us, maybe over the phone, we can enter that here and charge it. In this case, we know that the client would prefer to pay after the service has been completed, and they've indicated that they will pay via credit card using our online form, so I'm going to select credit card. Lastly, we'll indicate the payment due date for this job. We'll say that the due date is March 31st, and we'll submit that. All right, so we can see the auto scheduler has run and it has assigned the clean team to this job. 3 employees have been assigned. Perfect. All right, so this is what the work order looks like. We've got our company contact information at the top. We've got information on the order ID. We've got the due date, the payment status. We've got customer information, the special instructions. And most importantly, we've got the booking details. All right, so now that we've completed this work order and our auto scheduler has run over it, what we'll do now is just look at the various options that we have to interact with this work order, or what we'll call a future dated invoice. All right, so we'll look at this button here. The document button is really just a button that takes us back to the main invoice document. Next, we have the notes button. This button allows us to see any notes that we've added to the customer and any notes that we or our staff have added to this job. It should be noted that the client will never actually see any of the notes that are added here. So I'll just add a note that indicates that the client has a large dog that is quite friendly and not to be feared. Actually, in looking at this, I see I've already added that to the customer profile. So I'm going to say that they also have a large cat. That note has been attached to the job, which is perfect. Next section is our photos section. So here we can add photos of completed work. When we or our staff are out in the field, we can take a picture with our phone and then save it to this job using this page. We can also upload photos to this form once we get back to the office. So let's try uploading one now. Select this one. And we'll add a comment to this photo so that there's a bit of context behind what it is. So we're taken back to this main invoice page. We'll click on photos to see that photo we had uploaded. All right, so looking at the photo, we've got the date on which it was uploaded, the individual who uploaded it. This is me. I'm logged in as James. We have the option of sharing this photo with the client so that they can see it within the client portal. If we click on that button will turn green and it'll say shared with client. We can unshare it by clicking that button again. We can also delete the photo. If a photo has been uploaded in error, that's what we can do. I should mention that the ability to share a photo with a client is controlled exclusively by you. Employees do not have the option of sharing photos with clients. It's really a responsibility that lays with you, and it's also really for your protection. Maybe a photo could be uploaded to a job in error. You'll be the filter before it ultimately gets shared with the client. All right, so I should mention before we move on to the next tab, if we're wanting to look at this photo in a bit more detail, we can click on it. We're shown the photo in full size, the note that I've attached to the photos down here. If we did have multiple photos attached to this job, we could scroll through them by clicking on the sides of each image, and it'll move us forwards and backwards through the list of photos. All right, so in addition to adding notes to this work order, adding photos, there's actually many other actions that we can take on this particular work order. So what we can do is click on actions. And what we have here is a list of the various things that we can do. So the first one is view appointment. We can view the details of the appointment that was created. So we'll click that. We see some high-level information. We see the customer's name, the invoice ID, the address, start time, end time, whether or not an SMS reminder will be sent to the customer prior to the appointment. We have the option of editing the start time and end time by clicking this button. We'll say that we're happy with this for now, so we will go back to the invoice. Back to the actions. So the next action is viewing the scheduling of the job. So we'll click schedule job. And here we can see that the auto scheduler has automatically assigned this job to the clean team. So let's say that we'd also like Jenny to work this job. So we'll select the job, click Jenny's name. It's copied to her, and we're all done. If we want to go back to that invoice, what we'll do is we'll click the See Info button. The next button is the copy invoice button. So If the client has indicated that they also want maybe the same cleaning to take place, a couple weeks later, what we do is we come into this invoice, click copy invoice, and then we can simply add or subtract from the details of that invoice. It's a very, very quick and easy way to create another appointment or work order for the client. All right, so the next option is send appointment confirmation. So we can notify the customer of the appointment date and time via email and SMS. So at the click of this button, that confirmation reminder will be sent to the client. This is probably something that you want to use right after you complete a work order. Letting the client know when they're scheduled in is going to be useful to them. Okay, the next button is send to customer. So we're able to send a copy of this future dated invoice or work order to the customer simply by clicking this button, send to customer. The next one is request payment. So if we'd like for this customer to pay for this invoice using the online form and hopefully add maybe a tip to the invoice prior to payment, what we can do is click this button to send them that payment request. Right, so the next button is charge credit card. In this case, the customer's already done business with us in the past and we've got their credit card on file. With the customer's permission, we could actually charge that credit card for the amount of this invoice just by clicking this button. All right, if we need to make any changes to this work order or future dated invoice, we can click edit invoice and that takes us back to that invoice creation process. Next field or option rather is cancel invoice. So if we click cancel invoice, this will cancel the work order, the future dated invoice, like we said. It'll delete the booking out of our calendar and it will also notify the customer via email that the appointment has been canceled. And lastly, if we've completed the work order and the client has paid us using something like cash, check, Venmo, we can mark the invoice as having been paid. We can indicate the payment method here and then select the payment date. There we go. And then also, we can also send a survey to this client. If all of our settings are in place, what you'll find is that there is another button that allows us to send a survey to the client. So that is pretty much it for the review of the content of our future dated invoice. What we'll do is we'll just go through a scenario. So we'll say that the client has indicated that they're happy with the work that's been done and we're allowed to charge their credit card on file. So what we'll do is we'll come into actions and click charge credit card. So we get a message at the top of the screen that indicates that the credit card was successfully charged. If we look at the invoice, we see the payment status is now paid and we see the method of payment as being online via Visa, right? The message at the top of the screen also reminds us to send a copy of the invoice to the customer, right? So we'll do that now. We'll go into actions and we will send the customer a copy of this invoice by clicking this button. Oh, it was successfully sent. All right, so let's say that the client has reached out to us. They've noticed that we forgot to clean one of the bathrooms. To rectify this situation, we'll need to refund the payment and then create a new invoice. So let's refund the payment. We'll go to Actions and we'll click Refund Charge down here. And we need to confirm that yes, we do in fact want to refund the charge. All right, so At the top here, we see that the order has been refunded. The booking's been removed from our calendar. The customer's been notified by email. Below are the details of the refund as provided by Stripe. Specifically, confirmation is provided by Stripe that the refund went through, right? If we look at the refund status, it succeeded. There's a Stripe ID that we can take to stripe.com. We can enter this ID into the platform and we can see a lot more detail on this transaction if we're so inclined. All right, so if we want to see a customer-friendly version of the refund, what we can do is click Invoice Image, and this is the refund document. We see the refund status is a success, refund method, online, via Visa. We see the total of the refund was $316.88. And if we'd like to, we can send this refund confirmation to the customer. So let's do that now. We'll click Send to Customer. All right, so that refund confirmation was in fact sent to the customer. So now that the refund's been processed, we need to create another invoice, right, to cover the service that we did provide. What is the easiest way to do this? Let's click on the client. We're in the client profile. Let's look at the invoices. And it was this one that was the original invoice that we created, right? So we'll click View, Actions. And like I mentioned, if we want to quickly create an invoice for a customer, an existing customer, we can copy one of their existing invoices. We'll click Copy Invoice. Now, in this case, the client complained that we forgot to clean one of the bathrooms. We'll change this line item to read one bathroom, cut the amount in half. It's now $60. We'll click Save. We'll select that same booking date. I believe it was the 21st I might have that date wrong, actually. We'll say it was at 9 a.m. I can't quite remember the date. And from here, the amount has been corrected. This now reflects the work that we actually did. Let's click Charge to charge this amount to the client's card. Been a success. And finally, let's just send a confirmation of that charge to the customer. All right, so one thing I'd like to take a quick look at is the log associated with this work order. If we click log, you can see all the actions that have taken place associated with this. So we see the invoice was created, a future dated invoice, obviously. The appointment was created for the invoice. The invoice was successfully charged by a credit card, and we had 3 team members who were automatically assigned to the job, and then a copy of the invoice was emailed to the customer. All right, lastly, we'll just take a look at the invoice listing to see how we can kind of slice and dice that invoice listing. So this invoice listing can be accessed by clicking on Invoicing and Invoices. Right now, we're looking at the invoices that specifically pertain to this customer, as indicated here, and also up here. All right, so we can filter this list. We can look at all invoices, paid invoices, refunds, canceled invoices, invoices that are due, past due, invoices that we've not yet seen. So maybe we've got a client who had booked online and we come into this list. We can see invoices that have never been opened. They'll be marked as new. Work to be completed. This filtering is essentially for all future dated invoices. Let's take a look at that. And these are all dated into the future, essentially work orders. Unpaid invoices. These last two we'll actually cover in a future tutorial on reoccurring invoicing. All right, so that's pretty much it for this video. If you have any questions about anything we covered, feel free to submit a ticket or contact us using the details on our Contact Us page. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.